Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a FortiGate firewall and on Google Cloud GCP and how to create VMs and route the traffic through the FortiGate firewall. So to begin, the first thing you need to make sure that you have is a project. You can click new project and then create a new project. In this case here, we can create a new project called my class dash GCP. Whatever name you want to name it is basically um, your choice. Now, the the name has to be whatever you choose. Now, notice that it tells you that you can change it later, so uh, you can make sure that whatever name you want to create now is what you create as what you're going to use. So click on create. So now we have the project created, and then once the project is created, you're going to get a notification that is created. You can select the project, and that will switch from this project to the project. So you can choose it from here to the project name, or you could just go from the notification that you got earlier and then select the project. It's still going to do the same thing as well. So the next thing we want to do is we're going to create VPC networks. VPC, like Virtual Private Cloud Networks, with VPC networks. Now it says data could not be loaded. Additional action may be needed to resolve it. Just click continue. It's fine. It does that every time. So click fine, click continue. Now the reason why that happened is because this is not enabled. Now if I go back to VPC network, it gives me that same error again. How do I go against that? As in, how do I make this error not to come up? If you click continue, just click on enable compute engine, or we could just do this. Go to VM, compute engine, VM instance, and then by default, it will bring you that compute engine. You can just click enable. But why would I want to go through multiple steps to just achieve one thing? So I'm just going to just go back to my VPC network, create with the VPC, click continue, and first enable the compute engine. Once that is enabled, it tells you compute engine requires a project with a billing account. You can enable billing on that account. So this is the billing that I have. I'm just going to set it on that account. So we're just waiting for the compute engine to be enabled after the billing has also been enabled as well. Now the compute engine API has been enabled. Now once it's enabled, you will see that by default you have a VPC network with 39 subnets. Now this default has all the region there, all the region of Google Cloud. I don't really use this, so what I do instead is I just delete this default VPC. So this is what I just do. Click on the VPC and then I delete the VPC. You're wondering why do I have to delete the VPC? I don't need a VPC that has 39 subnets. I only need a specific VPC that belongs to a particular region that is closer to me, not all the region. I don't know all the region, so I need a VPC that's closer to, as in that is assigned to a region that is closer to me. So once you delete the VPC or wireless deleting, you could just create your own VPC. I'm going to call this VPC external VPC. And then I'm going to go to VPC as a new subnet. I'm going to call this external subnet. Now you wonder why did I use the same name as the VPC? Now the VPC is basically more like me saying make zero. This is like is an interface. So external VPC is just the name I want to give it. It's my choice. And then the subnet. This is actually very important. The subnet is external subnet. Now the region. You need to choose a region that is closer to you. The closer it is, the less the latency. So here I'm going to choose US Central 1, and then I'm going to create an IP address. I'm going to say 1 172.20 dots let's use 100.0/24. That's going to be for my external subnets, 172.20, and copy that, the 100.0.24. I'm going to leave everything the way it is by default. Click done for that. Now, by default, it comes with its own firewall rules, allowing ICMP from anywhere, allowing RDP from anywhere, because RDP is 3389, allowing SSH from anywhere. Notice that it's also using port 22. Then it's denying, see that? It's denying any incoming traffic from anywhere. As long as it doesn't match any of this, it will deny. So then the last one you have is allowing any outgoing traffic from going anywhere, going anywhere. So these are the default firewall rules that you have. You can tweak that. You can also recreate yours. So in this case, I'm just going to ignore that for now. Click create. Then the next I'm going to do is I'm going to create the one for my internal network. So create VPC. I'm going to call this internal VPC. Then my subnets, I'm going to call my internal subnets region. I'm going to choose the same region, US Central 1. My IP address is what I used earlier. I'm going to use 110 this time around. And then click done. It's the same firewall rules things that we have. Click create. Now, you remember when we saw the default, what's it called? The default um, VPC that was created by default when we created the projects. It came with 39 subnets. In this case here, when we create VPC, we're only creating one subnet. How can we create two subnets? You can create two subnets if you want. All you need to do is click on the VPC and then add subnet. We're going to do that later. For now, we're just going to leave it at this. So we have the VPC, we have the internal and the external with just one subnet. If you want to add a subnet to the internal VPC, it's just very straightforward. Click the VPC and add a subnet. You just give it a subnet name. Let's call it VM, the subnet in this case. It's whatever name you want to give it. It's going to be in the same region, US Central 1. And then I can choose to give it the same address range I have earlier, or I can just say 192.168. Dots, let's say 1.0/24. It's my choice of IP address range. Now click done as in had. That would then add you a new VPC called VP as in VM subnet. Now one thing you will notice is this: when that VP as in that VPC is created, this is going to change from 1 to 2. Now, why is it going to change from 1 to 2? Because in this VPC here, we have two VPC subnets. So if I go back there, you can see when it's still showing 1. Let's refresh that. All right, great. So now you can see now it's showing 2. So that was how they created those 39 subnets that belongs to different region. So in this case, this is how to do it. Next thing you can do is you can create a firewall rules, or you can leave the default firewall rules that you have already there. But I like to create my own firewall rules. But please note, this firewall rule I want to create should not be used in a production environment. Please do not use this in a production environment because I am allowing all traffic in and out. Don't do that. What you should do is to allow specific traffic to specific ports. That's what you should do. But for training purposes, I'm just going to allow all traffic in and out. So I can say external ingress. I'm going to choose the external interface. I'm going to change this from 1000. The higher priority takes lower precedence. So the lower the number, the better the precedence. So I'm going to use 999 in this case. Why can't I use 333? Yes, I can. Why can't I use 987? Yeah, I can use any number I want to use. It's just as long as it's below 65,534, which is actually the default one they're using. So I can use any number lower than that. So the lower the number, the better the precedence. I can leave them 1000 by default, which is also fine. Now, the traffic is going to be coming ingress, anything coming in, ingress, coming in. Action on match, allow it. Anything coming in, allow it. That's fine for now. All we change the target from tags to all instance. We change the source to this. Please remember this rule I'm creating is only for training purposes. Do not use this in the production environment. In the production environment, please choose the specific ports, limit the source, and so on like that. So, but in my own case, I'm just going to allow all source, all destination. This is what this means. So I'm sorry, all source, all ports, and all protocols. So click create. Now we're going to create that same traffic going out. We already created coming in. We're going to create it going out. So we're going to choose external interface as well. We're going to say external. Earlier we have ingress. We're going to say external egress. So external egress will 985 was what we used earlier. We can use the same number so it's easy for us to find. Now we're going to change the direction of the traffic to egress. This is very important. Change the direction of the traffic to egress. So saying going out. Egress, exits. So now the targets, we're going to move it from specified tag to all instance in the network, and then destination, anything, anywhere, as long as they're going anywhere. So all protocol, all ports, click create. We're going to do the same thing for the LAN as well. Please, I'm going to repeat again, do not do this in the production environment. Narrow down your firewall rules. If you don't know much about firewall rules, please reach out to your network administrator for much more information on what's it called, for proper instruction on what should be allowed and what should not be allowed. Do not do this in a production environment, but for a training purpose, we can just basically play with this. So now we're going to do internal ingress. We're still going to use the priority of 985. We're going to choose the internal VPC. We're going to choose all instance. Notice the traffic is ingress because we're going to choose the source as any source, all port, all protocol, create. Straightforward. We're going to create the reverse, which is basically the egress. Create firewall rules. We're going to say internal. Instead of ingress, we're going to create egress. Egress, and then we choose internal VPC, and we choose the same priority number, so it's easy for us to find when we filter our firewall rules. Egress is the direction, and then we're using all ports. Notice it's still going to be allowing the traffic from anywhere, going anywhere. This is egress now, going anywhere. Notice it's changed to, instead of source, it's on destination because it's going somewhere. Destination should be any destination, and then we have all port and all protocol allowed. So this is how to create a firewall rules. The same thing if you want to narrow it down, it's just the same way. Just create the firewall rules and just specify the port, specify the source, address, and so on like that. That is what you can do. In my case, I just allow anything from anywhere. Do not do that, but that's what we're doing. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create VMs. So we're going to create the FortiGate firewall, and we're going to create Debian, what's it called? Debian GUI. So first, FortiGate. We will be using the pay-as-you-go. You can have your own license. You use the BYOL and apply your license. If not, we have a 30 days free trial. So for this training, this is actually very adequate. Click Get Started. Accept the terms and agreement. Click Agree, and then click Deploy. Now, notice the computer engine we enabled earlier. Notice it's the only one that is enabled. There are two other things that needs to be enabled, so just click Enable. These are required APIs that need to be enabled for your FortiGate firewall to run. Now, once that is done, remember my region was what? US Central 1. So, but region has zones. So in US Central 1, I have Zone A, Zone B, Zone C, and Zone F. 4 zones in that region. I'm going to use Zone A. Why can't I? Yeah. So Zone A is what I want to use by default. You can name this FortiGate firewall anything, or you can leave it the way it is. So you can just say FGT training. It's your choice. Now, we'll leave it this way because we only need 2 interfaces, so we're not making any changes here. Now, the external interface is the first one. We have the external, the subnet is this. Ephemeral is the external IP. Ephemeral IP basically means it will be changing. It will be what? Changing. It's not static. If you want it to be static, you can create your own static IP address. Now click done. For internal, we're going to choose internal VPC, and then we're going to choose, remember on this VPC we created two subnets. We're still going to use the internal VPC subnet, internal subnets. We're not going to use the VM. We're going to use the VM for the VM when we create the VM. Now, external IP, we do not need an external IP for our internal VPC. Click done, then scroll down. Notice these are the things that are being allowed here by default, and then click deploy. So those are the ports that have been allowed. While that one is running, I'm just going to create the one for my Debian. For the Debian, I'm going to come to my marketplace, Debian GUI. That is the Debian Linux GUI. Click get started. The same thing applied as create the terms and agreements, and then deploy it as well. It's very straightforward. Now in this case here, earlier we used US Central 1 as in 1A. You could choose to use the same zone, or you could just move it to a different zone. It's your choice. So now, using the same zone, moving to different zone, I don't care. It doesn't matter. In this case, it will still work as long as they're in the same region. It would basically still route as within those VPC. So you can use the same zone or different zone. Let's just leave it on the same zone for now. The next thing we're going to do is for the VM. The VM is going to be in my LAN internal. So change this from external to internal. Now we do not need a public IP on the internal. For now, we just turn that off. You can leave it on, remote into it, but I will not do it for now. So just leave it off. So this is what we have. Now this is what I'm actually much more interested in, the VM subnets. So I'm changing my subnets. Instead of using the internal, which is what I'm using on my FortiGate, I'm using this. So click done. Then notice it needs port 22 and port 3389, which is RDP, to be enabled, and then you click deploy. So straightforward. That is how to deploy VMs using Marketplace. So we have been able to deploy FortiGates. This is saying it's been deployed. This is good. It gives us an admin URL, a temporary password. You can copy that, open the admin URL. Now, let me say this. This would not open except this has been set up for like 5 minutes. GCP just sometimes takes that long for the public address IP address to be working for the FortiGate. So 5 minutes, give it 5 minutes. How would I know how long it's spent? Alright, let me click on this IP first. How will I know how long it's spent? So click on this deployment. It will tell you how long it's been deployed. It was created 2 minutes ago, so give it some time. Give it some time. Now, while we're waiting for that, the Debian was just created also. So we just say, okay, yeah, we have the Debian created. Now, for the Debian, we can basically just SSH into the Debian. Click SSH. So that one is just very straightforward. SSH, and then it's going to ask you to authorize it. You click on authorize, and then you have the SSH. Another way you can get into the Debian SSH is this. Go to the navigation menu, go to Compute Engine, VM instance. That's because they are VM, they're virtual machines. So now on the VM instance, you will see the FortiGate VMs that we created. You will see Debian VM also that we created as well. So you can click on SSH for the Debian VM. So you can either click on it here or you click on it the other way when we have it there earlier. Let me close this out. Okay, that is it. That's the one we have. Click authorize. And once you authorize it, that is my Debian. This is my Debian. So now what I'm going to do is by default there's a username that it comes with by default, which is Debian. So I can just say sudo password Debian. So I'm changing the password. Now, if you want to create a new username, use a sudo add user. Let's create a user called admin, and then it tells us what is the password that you want to use for your username called admin. And it's going to ask you what is the full name. You type in the full name, you type in your room number, you type in your phone number, your home phone number, all the information. Is everything correct? Yes, they're correct. And then say yes, and that's it. So now we have two different users. We have Debian and we have admin. Those are the two users we have. So for now, we're just going to leave that. We already have the FortiGates deployed. We have the VM, Debian VM also deployed as well. So one thing we can just quickly do is, let's see, can we get anywhere with this Debian VM? No, no traffic is going out. Okay, why? We're going to look at that later. For now, let's just leave it at that. Now, go to the deployment manager again and then refresh that. It's up to 5 minutes. 4 minutes. Let's refresh this. Notice we still don't have it up yet. Just we'll give it 1 more minute. 1 more minute, you will then see this page. It will basically open. So let's refresh that. Just make sure that we're in 5 minutes. Okay, now we're in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. So now if I refresh this, try it again. So once it's 5 minutes, you will basically see that open. Now you have the FortiGates, and then you can basically click on it and copy your temporary password, which you need. Your temporary user, your username is admin, your temporary password is this. So then click on that, type in your username, put in your temporary password, and then put in temporary password as the old password, type in your new password, click OK. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to log in to the FortiGate and then see if we have access to the internet on the FortiGate. So we're just going to disable that and disable that, click OK, say OK to that, and then disable that, click OK. So let's go to our terminal and see if we have access to the internet here. Ping. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We can get anywhere to the internet, so we're fine. So now this can get anywhere to the internet, but let's do something. Let's do some tweaking. Now, first, one thing we need to look at is this. Look at this. On the policy, we basically have implicit denial. That's all we have. Nothing is going to go in. Well, just everything is being denied. So the first thing I like to do on my FortiGate is this. I like to name my ports so that I know what they're doing. So I just call my ports external, which is port 1 in this case, which is 1. Click OK. Please do not change this from this, and just leave it the way it is. And then the next thing we're going to do is for the internal. I did that. And then we'll do the LAN on this internal. We're going to allow ping. That's okay. So you can change the subnet mask if you want, but for now, let's just create static routes. Static routes to anywhere. We're using the external to go anywhere. The gateway to go anywhere for the external is going to be the first IP address in this subnet, which is going to be .1. So click OK, and that gives us an error saying, oh, that gateway could not be reachable, blah blah blah, because we're using /32. Just leave it, don't worry about it. The next thing we're going to do, of course, let's just look at it this way. Is it still able to go to the internet? Yes, it's still able to go to, so we don't need to worry about it. So next we're going to do is to create a static route to that VM subnet. Let me show you why. My VM subnet, so this is my VM IP. If I go back to my FortiGate, can I ping that VM? Ping. I cannot. Well, if I create a static route to that VM, why do I need to create a static route? Look at this. This IP address, this subnet IP, is different from that IP address of my VM. So I need to create a static route to tell it how to get there. It's in the same internal VPC, so I'm going to go through it through the internal VPC. So I'm going to say anything from that particular subnet should go through this one here, which is actually having this particular IP .1 as the gateway. Notice? So it's going through my internal to get here. So click OK. Let's try that again. Do we have access now? Yes, we do. That's easy. So now you might be wondering, why do I still have this exclamation mark and everything? You don't need to worry about it. If you want to remove it, just go to the interface, go to the internal, and then switch this to manual, and then switch this to .0. And that's all you need to do. Click OK. I would not change the one for the external. Don't do that for now. Just leave it. You might lose access to your FortiGate somehow, so I don't want you to lose access right now. So we're not going to focus on that for now. So here we can ping our VM, and if we go to the VM, can that VM, let's still basically stop there, can that VM go anywhere? No. Can that VM even ping um, 172.20. Let's see, what is my LAN IP? 102.110.2. The VM can't even get there. So the VM can't even go anywhere. So why? Because on the firewall, what do we have? We have the implicit denying. Nothing is going in or out. So we're going to create a policy that allows traffic from the LAN to the internet. So we're going to say from internal to external. So we're going to say incoming is internal, is going outside to external. So we can say from any source going to any destination using all services. And this is what we're doing. So we just mission that is enable all session is fine. Enable the policy and click OK. Now this would now allow internet access on anything connected to the LAN. Let's see if that works. So do we still have access to the internet here? Yes, we still do. How about here? Let's see. No, we still don't. And like, why don't we have internet access on this VM? Now, one thing we're going to look at is why don't we have internet access on this VM? But before we do that, allow us to review how the VPC was set up. So if we go back to the VPC again, the navigation menu, VPC network, VPC. Now, one thing you will see is that we have two VPCs. Now, external VPC, internal VPC. Internal VPC has two subnets. So the two subnets internal VPC has is internal VPC, internal subnet, and VM subnet. So the two subnets here. Now, one thing you need to make sure that you do have is that the firewall rules is allowing you to go outside. So this is my firewall rules here. This is my internal. This is my internal egress, internal ingress, and this basically says, let's expand this. This is anything goes outside, and then anything comes inside. So this rule is actually great. There is no issue with the rule, so we don't have any issue with that rule. This particular one here is a specific rule for the Debian, which this particular one is already what's it called? Um, um, this is taking precedence over this already. So even if these rules are gone, this is still going to just basically replace this because the priority number here is lower than the priority number here. So the next thing we're going to look at is the routes. So if we go to the route management, now one thing you'll see is that we have the routes to the internet on the external gateway. We have the route to the internet on the internal gateway. You do not really need this. So what we can do is um, we can change this route to what's it called, route the traffic through the FortiGate internal to route the traffic through the FortiGate. So instead of doing this, we're going to delete this one here to be the route for the internal, and then route all traffic through the FortiGate. So to route the traffic through the FortiGate, we're going to go to route management, create routes. We're going to say FortiGate route, call it whatever you want to call it. Now, the network, we're going to choose internal, and then we're going to say destination. Give me a minute. It's going to be external, internal, destination. And then the priority, you can lower the priority. You can say that lower priority take precedence. So you can leave it on this because we only have one route there. This is where we change it to a specific IP. So we can say every internet traffic should go through the FortiGate. So the FortiGate interface is basically for my internal is this. So you should go through the IP address, put the IP address there. So anything going to any destination should go through this interface here. That's what this particular route basically means. Click create. So now this is saying anything going to anywhere should go through this particular interface. So let's go back to the Debian. Notice the moment we did that, you have access to the internet. So let's try and ping. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake there. How didn't I catch that? So we can basically ping that interface. So now we can go out to the internet. Oh, sorry. We can go out to the internet, ping one. So all the reason why we can do that is because on our route here, we move all the routes to go through the FortiGates. So if you go to the FortiGate now, you go to your policy, you go to firewall policy, and then you expand this, you will basically see the traffic. You can see the traffic. If we inspect the traffic, show matching logs, as long as we can find the logs, memory. Okay. Let's see, you can try without that. Yeah, it's taking a while. Let me see if I can generate more traffic. So go back to my FortiGate firewall. Okay, great. There it is. So that is the policy internal to external, and you can see we have traffic coming in. So now we have traffic. We tried to ping that earlier. That was the wrong IP. That was why you can see it send, but it didn't receive anything because that was the wrong IP. That's fine. But this we could ping, we could go DNS. Let's refresh and see the last one. Okay, we tried to ping 111 and we got the response as well. So let's refresh. I think we ping Google as well. We're currently pinging Google, which is this one here, 172.172.1.101. This should come in anytime from now. So let's wait for it. So to wait for it, I can just break this while I'm trying to wait for it. So refresh again. Let's just give it a while. It's going to come in. Okay, while we're just worried about it. So now, one thing you've seen that I've done is in a static route, I didn't really bother much about changing the one as in the, what's it called? I didn't change the summary mask of the one interface. I left it on DHCP. That's fine. Just leave it that way it is. But I did change the summary mask of my LAN. I had to put it on manual. Just that's fine as well. The next thing we want to do is you could actually do this for my what's it called, my Debian. If I want to RDP into this Debian, I need a public IP address to RDP into the Debian. So I'm going to map this IP to a public IP, which is going to be to this particular public IP. So I'm going to copy this, go to my FortiGates, create a VIP for that, policy object VIP, create a VIP for that. I'm going to say Debian RDP is the name. External interface, the internal IP is going is this, and the external IP I'm using this particular public IP as my external IP. I'm using port 3389, which is RDP, 3389, which is RDP. So if I'm RDPing, I'm from outside, I'm going to be RDPing using this particular one here. So click OK. The next thing I'm going to do is to create a, notice there's no 8 count right now. So if I refer, there's no 8 count. So I'm going to create a policy. Just right click on that, click create policy using this object. So here to create a policy, we could just say Debian to actually it's actually external, from anything from external to Debian. So coming from internet, going inside, the network. So coming from anywhere, going to that particular bit that I created, and the policy or the service is using is RDP. In this case, I'm just going to choose RDP, and you can leave that if you want. I don't really care about it at this point. You can disable it, but click OK. Make sure the policy is enabled. So now, once the policy is enabled, let's go back to the VIP. Notice we still have 08 count. So let's try to RDP into the IP address. RDP remote desktop, pastes the IP, connects. Okay, we could have RDP into using the IP. For now, that's okay. Let's see, what are we missing? Let me see, give me a moment. Let me check what I'm missing. Okay, so the issue here is the way this GCP thing works sometimes is the public IP address. I have to use the physical interface of the external IP. Let me just copy that, and then go to my VIP again, change this from the public IP to the physical external IP, which GCP itself is basically mapping to the external IP, which is basically this one, or whatever I changes to ephemeral. So because we're not using static IP, so yeah, this is what we're going to use. This particular IP here. Click OK. So now in this case, this is the IP we're using. But if we are remoting into it, we will still be remoting into it using the public IP address. And you're like, how is that? Now let me go back to the VPC again. VPC network, VMs. Now on the VM, this is my external IP 172.20.100.2. It's mapping that external IP to this. How did I know? Let me just show you that again. In the VPC network external, what you have is you have this particular interface. Let me edit that. You have that particular interface, and that particular interface has an ephemeral external IP. So it basically maps that subnet to that. So it maps it to it using GCP, and then you route using GCP NAT and other kind of things that Google does at the background. So what I need to do is basically change the external IP to the IP address of the FortiGate, and the internal IP to the VM itself, then the port number. Once I do that, currently we still have nothing, so let's open RDP. Now notice it's the same IP I have on my public interface. Click connect. Now notice now I have connection. So the Debian is now opening with the public IP address. I put in my username, I put in my password, and then now I have access to the GUI of the Debian. Isn't that interesting? Using the public IP. Now, why this is actually running, let me just quickly show you that I have hits now. If I refresh this, you will see that I have hits. I have 2 hits. If I go to the policy, you will see under the policy for the external, look at that. I have traffic right now. If you go to your log, you basically will see the kind of traffic, where it came from, and the kind of protocol it used, and you can see it says external to Debian, it says internal to external, so that tells you that it's working. So great. So now the next thing we're going to do is go back to the VM, and on this VM you can basically just open the browser. Let's open the browser. That's this one. You could browse the internet. Now remember, we can ping the internet on the VM, so it should browse. So if you want to be sure, let's go to hotmail.com. So that tells you it's working. Let's check the news, bbc.co.uk. That is working. So cnn.com. See, basically, we can browse, we can go anywhere. All this traffic that we just put in, it's basically going to be recording on the FortiGate as well, because all this traffic is going through the FortiGate. So let's just go back to the FortiGate and then refresh that and see we have all those traffic coming in, all the traffic. Notice the IP, notice the IP. So everything, notice the protocol, HTTPS. So you'll see all the one for Hotmail, for CNN, for BBC. These are their public IP address and everything that is doing. So it's going, the traffic is basically going out. So now, the final thing we want to do to run up this class is we have access to the internet. Now, can I access the FortiGates from here? The FortiGate internal IP, let me show you. The FortiGate internal IP is this. Copy that to, let me go back here and copy that. Go to my, what's it called? My VM. I put in there. It's not going to open. Why? Because on the internal interface, all I have is ping. So how do I make it open? Turn on HTTPS. If you have a photo manager, you can do that as well. But yeah, that's fine. Either way, you have SSH, you can do that as well. If you want, that's fine. So click OK. But basically, all you need is HTTPS. In this case, HTTPS is all you need. Click OK. And then we have access. Now we're going to stop that. We'll then try to refresh that. There we go. Accept the risk. And then we have access to the FortiGates using the LAN interface. So I can log in to show you that is actually the FortiGates. We're not going to save that. And then you can see if we go to network, interfaces, you can see those are the two interfaces that I have. The external, the internal, this IP. If you go to the logs, you will still find the log there as well. So let's change this over from disk to memory. Yeah, so there we have, see all the traffic that we're pulling, everything, yeah, all there. So this is how to manage your use your FortiGates to route your traffic, so to manage your VM traffic. So our traffic is basically going through the FortiGates now. So if we go to the terminal, this is going to be, let me see, terminal, and then we say let's trace how you get to this. So it's telling us it's going through 172.20.110.2. So if we go to our network, 172.20.110.2 is basically my LAN IP. So which is basically what I configured as the routes when we went to the VPC. We created the routes to allow all traffic from the LAN, which is the internal, to go through that 120.2. And that's exactly why that VM is basically sending its traffic to this Google DNS via that particular interface. I hope this video has been helpful to you, and already show you how to set up Google, set up FortiGates firewall to protect your cloud resources in Google. So one thing you'll notice is that I created a separate subnet for my VM. If you're having issues having the VM in the same subnet as your FortiGates, just create a second subnet in your internal VPC and put your VMs in there. You should be fine. So in this case here, everything is working the way it's supposed to work. We have traffic to the internet. We can access the FortiGate on the LAN as well, and so on like that. So we also were able to remote into the VM using VIP on the FortiGates using the external IP that was provided. Even if the external IP changes tomorrow, we'll still able to remote into it using the part of IP that was provided. Remember, ephemeral would always change. Please like this video, please share this video, please put your comments on how you think this video can be improved. My goal is to make sure that I create more of these videos to show you how you can actually configure your FortiGate in Google Cloud, GCP, and Google Cloud Platform environment. So please subscribe again, share, and I really want to thank you for your time and for viewing this video.